We're going to get started in just a few minutes. Thank you so much for joining us on the webinar. Hi, we're going to get started just now. We want to make sure the sound is okay on your end. So just type in the question box if you can hear us and your sound is okay. I'm just going to make sure that everybody can hear me okay and see the presentation. Welcome to the Organized Couple. You've probably seen this webinar in lots of different places. Maybe you found us on the hashtag Make Space Not War, but we're so glad that you're here tonight joining us to learn the art of peaceful household management. Let me just check my screen and see if anybody is having any trouble with their sound. I just want to make sure everybody is good with the sound. This is the first time I'm using a live Google Hangout, so pardon me with the technology. Just one moment, let me make sure sound is good. Great, very, very glad. Okay. Wonderful. Well, we'd love to know where you're calling in from. We've got people from many countries, right, Shlomo?
Right.
We have people from
A lot of different time zones. So some of you are listening live, and others of you are still asleep or haven't woken up yet. So you'll be getting that. You'll get the replay link, and you can always listen to it again if you would like to as well.
We'd love to know what you're grateful for today, if you feel like sharing that with us. So today's class is going to cover the organized couple, and you are going to learn how to master the art of peaceful household management. And we have such an exciting presentation for you tonight. We have an amazing guest who I'll introduce in a few minutes, but we're just very excited and we have so much to share with you tonight. Be sure to stay on until the very end because you're finally going to learn what has been stopping you from getting organized if you've tried before, which probably most of you have. And no, it's not just your spouse. I hate to break it to you. So stay on until the very end because we really want you to, to really master this and get everything that we're sharing with you. And for those of you wondering how to join the webinar, you should have gotten an email that says the webinar will begin in an hour, and click on that link that email shared with you. We're going to take questions also, at least questions pertaining to the material at the very end, because there's a lot of screens that I have to look at, and it's just too confusing to go back and forth. So
if you have technical problems, just please email, type it in the chat box.
Do email us, but questions pertaining to the material, specifically with regards to organizing and marriage, save those till the end, please. So some of you know us, some of you don't. I wanted to introduce myself, my husband, because many of you are coming from lots of different places. So some of you may have heard of us or read our articles before, and some of you haven't, or have no idea who we are. So my husband, there's a picture of us. So my husband is Shlomo Slacken and I'm Rivka Slacken. And my husband Shlomo is a marriage counselor. He has a master's in counseling psychology and he's an advanced clinician in a modality of therapy called Imago relationship therapy, which is also commonly known as Getting the Love You Want, which was written by Harville Hendricks.
Based on the book, yeah. Imago is based on the book Getting the Love You Want by Dr. Harville Hendricks. He wrote the book over 30 years ago, and he created Imago therapy, and some of the basic principles are outlined in that book.
So he's been in practice for over a decade, and he works exclusively with couples and relationships, and specifically. So the reason why that's important is because there's many counselors out there that kind of once they graduate, they can kind of hang up their sign and saying, seeing couples, families, individuals, kids, you name it. And while that may sound, while that extends them to being able to service many different populations, couples work is really sensitive, right, Shlomo? It's a whole, I don't even know. It's just a really...
It's like any specialty, I always liken it to medicine. Any specialty in medicine, you want to make sure that you go to somebody. You want to go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor if you have
a heart problem.
Your heart problem, or go to a cardiologist to get your tonsils taken out. So you want to make sure that you find somebody who really. There's a lot you have to know to work with the couple effectively.
So that's why I wanted to bring that out. So that's really important. Here are a lot of the works. And if you go on our website, themarriagerestorationproject.com, you'll see a lot more of these. But Shlomo's written 3 books and he's been featured in a lot of media. He also co-authored a book with the founder of Imago. I mentioned Dr. Harville Hendricks. So he co-authored a program with him. So I'm very proud of him and he's very successful. He has a 90% success rate in keeping couples together and happy. So I'm really excited. And here is him presenting to a large crowd. So I'll share with you our story because I'm putting my husband on a pedestal, but if you would have seen us,
you would have seen me
14 years ago. Do you want to share the story or?
Well, after we got married, we started experiencing some conflict, and especially after our first child was born, and we were kind of bewildered. We didn't understand because we always told people that we'd never have any issues. When we were engaged. We were kind of in la la land, but eventually we started fighting, and it was quite painful for both of us. But we got help. We found an Imago therapist, and it really transformed our relationship, and that's how I got into doing this, and that's how we both got into working on this together and helping couples, because we feel so strongly about the transformation it had in our own lives, and we see the suffering that's out there, and we really want to show people that there can be a better way and that people can live a happy and connected, loving life together.
These are 3 of our 5 children, so they're cute little faces. Now I'm very excited to introduce the guest on our presentation, Tara Donohue Rudo, who I've known for many years. I think we met maybe back in like 2002 when we actually both were starting our organizing businesses. Is that right, Tara?
Yes.
Was it 2002? I think it was around then. Your
I
microphone might be muted. But while you're figuring that out, I'm gonna give you your accolades. Tara is amazing. She is an amazing organizer. She's been featured in lots of places, lots of media, and she is a member of the National Association of Professional Organizers, which, believe it or not, there is a very proud organization of professional organizers. And there's a special certification board for certified professional organizers. And Tara is she's one of only 350 certified professional organizers out there. She's a certified family manager coach. And I just had to have her on. Tara, are you with us?
I hope so.
I wanted to make sure that you can hear us and that you can co-present. Let's make sure this mic is working.
Do you have me?
Well, I'll wait for Tara to get on. Just give
Now
us
do
a
you have
shout
me?
out when you're on.
Rivka?
I'm wondering why I can't.
But she was
hear you.
on before.
We practiced this earlier today.
No, a few minutes ago she was on.
Oh, yeah, I did see her before. So
How about
I'm going to
now?
get back to her
Now?
and see what's going on. So while we're waiting for that, we wanted to, when we put out this webinar, we got such amazing feedback from people that we said, what do you think of us doing a webinar on the topic of organizing and marriage together? Because so many people that are trying to get organized are also experiencing some marriage conflict. And so we got just hundreds and hundreds of emails with people that
right away,
not even like a few minutes after we sent it out. So many, questions that people had and scenarios that you all are dealing with that, with regards to marriage and organizing. And we just really felt for you. And we wanted to share some of them tonight. And we probably won't be able to get to all of them, but there will be an opportunity to get to all of the questions. But here are some of them. And we'd love for you to take out a piece of paper and write on a scale of 1 to 10, or even in the chat box, let us know on a scale of 1 to 10 how you feel about these following issues. And my blood starts to rise when I read these. I mean, I start to feel
anxious.
Yeah, we start to feel a bit anxious. So
because we can relate to a lot of them ourselves.
What does it feel like if someone threw away your favorite blank? What does it feel like when your spouse doesn't pay the bills on time? How about when you keep asking him or her to fix something and they don't do it? How about when your mother-in-law says she's stopping by in 5 minutes and your house is a total mess? How about when your kids pour milk on the floor for the second time of the day? And how do you feel when you see your friends' kids serving and clearing dinner and not yours? And how do you feel when your spouse pressures you to have dinner on the table the moment they return home from work? And how about when your spouse is always late? These just get to me. I don't know how you guys feel. I'm gonna check the chat to hear. Oh, you guys can hear Tara? Oh, I can't hear Tara. Why is that? Hold on 1 second.
Oh, because your speaker's off.
Oh, silly. I'm so sorry. Tara, can you say something?
Hello?
Hi. Technical difficulty. I'm so sorry. Now I can hear you. So did I introduce you well enough?
I think you did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll get back to you soon, Tara.
We're going to get back to you. But was I right? Did we start our organizing businesses in 2002 or so?
I think it was around the same time. So right around there, 2002, 2003. I can't remember exactly when we joined that local group together, but we definitely hit it off right away and have stayed in touch over the years. So it was right around then. It's been a long time.
And I've always loved, so I've since given up organizing and decided to work together with Shlomo because with our 5 kids and everything going on, there's just so much to do. But Tara, what I love about you is that you are a no-nonsense organizer, but you're also so empathic and compassionate to your clients, and you know how to get to them. And that's really why I wanted to have you on tonight. So thank you so much for joining us.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, we're sharing these because these are some of the hot buttons that people sent with, to us. And I think they're really important. So Shlomo, did you check any of the answers? Are people sending in? Are you guys sending in on a scale of 1 to 10 what these are like for you? And if you can relate to these, I think we're getting a whole bunch of people that can relate to this. So before we learn how to create peaceful household management, we need to understand why organizing causes so much conflict. I mean, it seems obvious, but it's actually not so obvious. And Shlomo, why don't you share how it felt for our first organizing tiff when we
So I remember we were a few months married. It came home and we had this little magazine rack because you're so organized already that you had all of our magazines, and I like to collect things, and for articles I wanted to write or just like magazines, newspapers. So I had some things there, and I remember looking for something, and it had magically walked off. So I noticed one newspaper was missing, and then another one. I'm just wondering, like, where did all that go? I know I didn't do anything with it. So I think I asked you if you had seen it, and you said, "Oh, well, I threw all that's in the trash can," and I was just like, "Oh, wow." So I discovered that you were organizing, and you kind of just threw out. You didn't think it was necessary. So I was pretty upset. I remember I didn't understand how somebody could just take my stuff and just without asking, I just throw it away. I'm the type of person, I used to save. I actually threw them all away eventually, but I used to save every single magazine and newspaper that I'd ever, not the special newspapers, not just the every single day newspaper, but every magazine that I'd ever subscribed to. And I used to get one of those, used to be able to get those, I guess you can get like a few magazines for $1, like the special offers in the Sunday paper. So I used to get a lot of magazines, and I had boxes of them. We even had a little storage shed that we would go to. I remember one day just deciding to dump them all. But so I'm the type of person that, I like to save things. So I was just kind of shocked that you had dumped it all, and I was just really, really upset at the time.
And I completely did not understand why you were so upset. I just thought, who cares? They're magazines. Like, what was the big deal? But it was really upsetting to you.
Well, because there was a reason why I, had kept them. So we really realized early on that we had different styles of organizing, and that if we didn't get on the same page and really understand what was going on, that we were going to have continued conflict throughout a relationship around these issues, because we were both kind of, I would say, diametrically opposed to each other in terms of our styles. So we discovered that professionally. We've also discovered professionally, not just personally, that organizing is more than meets the eye. If you don't understand this key principle, then all the tips in the world really will do nothing. And just want to ask you, Rivka, you can share about. You mentioned that you had started your own organizing business, and want to share about your story of how you got into it and what you discovered, kind of the rude awakening you were in for once you started organizing for other people.
I'm going to share how I got into organizing, and then I want to go back to Tara also and talk to her about how she got started, but it might even be similar. I got into organizing because it was the way I controlled my surroundings, because my surroundings were so out of control. And, growing up as a child of divorce, there was a lot of moving around, and that was just kind of how I think I dealt with things and how I calmed myself down. And I opened up a professional organizing business, and I loved it. But what I got really frustrated with was that a lot of my clients were not ready to take action. I would talk to them about, letting go of some of their clutter, and many of them weren't ready, or every little thing that I would, suggest, they were resistant to. And I felt so frustrated. And And I didn't understand, why they couldn't see that, they didn't need to keep, certain things, maybe like something written on a napkin, or it wasn't even like, I'm not talking about,
I used to do that.
yeah, you did have
Used to do that.
you did have a napkin, but that I wanted to get rid of. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like checking account statements. It was, little things. But, I didn't want to minimize, how important these were to the clients. But at the same time, I felt really frustrated by the lack of action, because I knew that if they would implement some of these things, they would feel so much better. So that's kind of, one of the reasons that prompted me to realize this wasn't my calling. But Tara, tell us about how what you think about this, the resistance of clients, and then go back to your story and tell us how you got into professional organizing.
Well, let me start real quickly on how I got into organizing. Similar to Rivka, my parents are married, so I wasn't shuttled from house to house, but I grew up in a disorganized house. The kind where we were late for everything and had to dig through the dirty clothes to find our sports uniforms that we needed for whatever practice, and always kept a notepad in the car because we were always writing notes for late arrivals to school or doctor's appointments or whatever it was. And as a kid, you don't have any control. And so very similar to Rivka's experience, I think my organizing skills came out of a coping mechanism that I exerted control in my own life by becoming hyper organized. And then as I got older and had a series of jobs, the common thread in everything that I loved about my jobs was organizing. So I ended up turning that into a career and found that so many of my clients were never taught organizing skills, or didn't come from backgrounds like Rivka's and mine, where we developed organizing skills as a coping mechanism. And so what I loved about what I've done over the last 13 and a half years is helping clients learn the skills that they were never taught, or on the other side of the coin, harnessing those controlling mechanisms so that the people that they live with can learn to organize together and not work in opposition.
That makes sense.
So the conflict part that you were just talking about now is, you're right. I mean, there is usually a stuff that's a lot deeper than the stuff. It's not about the napkin or the newspaper. It's about what's behind that. What's the priority that's making someone hold on to that, or what's the fear that's making somebody hold on to that. Most couples get in conflict because there isn't a common understanding as to the priorities with the stuff in their house or the space or the rooms, and therefore they end up fighting about it.
Right. And you were saying that's usually what prompts them to call someone like you, right?
It's usually one spouse, the more organized spouse, pushing the less organized spouse to do something about the problem.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I bet probably a lot of people on the call, many of them have actually called a professional organizer. Or maybe some of you didn't even know that there was a field. Actually, I mean, now it's much more popular than when I started, but truly it's an amazing field, and someone like Tara can really help so much. And I think you were also saying, Tara, that it's not for lack of a desire that people can't get organized, right? Because everybody has books in their homes and things, right? That you find
Organizing books.
Right. Every single one of my clients has organizing books or videos or YouTube things that they've tried. It's more about learning what your learning style is and how to put systems in place that work with you. Not trying to adapt your learning style to fit a cookie cutter that's in a book or Office Depot or wherever you can find a supply.
Great, and we're going to have you actually share more about that later, about the different styles of organizing, because it sounds like that's kind of some of the difficulty that a lot of people have in applying what they've learned in these books.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say it's similar to what you do with couples. It's about digging into the individuality and digging into the relationship to figure out what solution is going to make sense for that particular situation.
So it's really customized.
Absolutely needs to be. Everybody's brain works differently. Everybody's relationship, family, household, everything works differently. So having a customized solution, in my opinion, is key.
That's good, because that's really makes it more personal. And Shlomo, what about you? I mean, in your sessions.
Yeah, so it's always for me, because you were an organizer, so it's not such a foreign topic at all to me. So when I hear couples talk about it, I almost want to tell them, if one like, why don't you just call my wife? I can't really do that professionally, but couples do spend a lot of marriage counseling sessions discussing these, having conflict around the issues of organization, chronic lateness, space organization. We might revisit the topic multiple times over the course of therapy. So it's definitely something that comes up. But as with all issues, as we've been saying already, with all issues, it's not really about the stuff. With all issues that a couple brings to therapy, it's always more than the content. There's usually something deeper. And until we really can get to the bottom of it and kind of tackle the root of the problem, the tips are not necessarily going to be effective, because there's going to be resistance, and people will not be able to kind of accept the advice that, in many cases, accept the advice of a professional, because there's just certain blocks are getting in the way. So it really is helpful to get to the root of the problem and become more aware. And because also, in order to maintain, even if the organizer comes and declutters and helps them, in order for them to really maintain that organization, they have to become more aware of some of the blocks that are preventing them from moving forward and becoming successful.
I just want to take a pause for a minute and have you all tell us if you can hear everything okay, because some people are writing that they're having some trouble hearing. Can you just write in the questions box if you can hear us okay, please? Just take a moment to make sure that your broadcast is working okay. Let me know if you can hear. Tara, you can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's just see if anybody...
Some people can hear, yeah.
Great.
If for some reason I would say, if you can't hear, I could tell you what to do, but you can't hear, so it's not going to help.
Okay, well, they'll get a replay.
Everyone will get a replay. I was going to tell them that, but they can't hear that either.
Okay, well, I'll write to them when I can. So finally, we're talking about getting to the deeper issues and how you can finally get organized when you know these things. So are you ready to experience lasting organization in your home? Give us a big yes, because we're going to do that. I see lots of you are ready.
Okay, great. So while everyone has their own stories about organizing, what the issues are, we got a lot of emails from you detailing your specific situation. And there are definitely some tips that can be helpful for your specific situations. We really want to address kind of the main issue that really all the conflict boils down to. And that main issue is safety. That in relationship, the most important ingredient is safety. That if a relationship really wants to thrive, there needs to be safety. Without the emotional, of course, physical safety, that goes without saying, but without the emotional safety, there's really no hope to create a loving connection or really resolve any issue successfully. So you can go into a therapist's office and you can talk about the issues that you have, but if you're not feeling safe, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's why one of the main things we do in imago therapy, the focus is really creating a structured session to really create safety so that couples can really hear each other and let down their guard and their resistance and be able to open themselves up to the possibility of change.
Shlomo, when you say safety, do you mean like not being yelled at and screamed at and that kind of thing?
Well, that's definitely, yeah. I mean, that goes without saying. That goes without saying. With curbing the reactivity, getting to a place of calm, But a lot of things will trigger us and make us feel unsafe and make us not be able to be fully present, as we're going to share in a moment. So let's talk about what happens to your brain when it doesn't feel safe. So we'd like to use this model called the triune brain. It's by Dr. Paul MacLean. And he divided the brain into 3 sections. The first section is the brainstem, or the reptilian brain. That's we'd say like the most primitive part of our brain in terms of the way it acts. The middle brain, or the limbic system, is the emotional part of the brain. And then the neocortex, that's the frontal part of the brain. That's the cognitive part of the brain. So when all of these parts of the brain are integrated, then you can really be effective in processing and doing whatever activity. You can be ready to learn. You can be ready to be creative and create and do a lot of things effectively in your
Maybe
life.
that were different and not, and maybe, things that don't come maybe naturally to you in some ways, that you can access your full brain.
Well, you'll be able to, think of solutions to problems that perhaps you would not have otherwise. But what happens when the brain is under stress? You get stuck in what's called the reptilian brain. That's that primitive part. That's the fight or flight part of our brain. So when you're in the fight or flight part of your brain, when you're in that reptilian brain, you can't access the rest of your brain. In the sense that you really can't think about all the possible solutions that you would if you were fully integrated, if you could access the cognitive part of your brain. So basically, whenever you perceive danger, this is where you go. And your main goal is to stay alive, to survive. It's a very primitive way of being, but I think a lot of us, unfortunately, in our society spend a lot of time in our reptilian brain because of the way that we deal with life and the way that we experience life in a stressful manner. We get sent to this part of our brain, and we're really spending most of our life reacting to situations as opposed to really being fully present and conscious. So when we feel safe or threatened in our relationship, so what happens is that instinct that we have to survive and protect ourselves, that instinct is really what takes over. And we're not really able to be present. We're not able to work things out with each other and think of things. We just want to protect ourselves. So that either means running away or fighting back. And that's where we see conflict with couples. And we'll explain in a moment why organizing evokes such a response. So we see couples that are fighting over the same issues for years, or they come in and they tell me, we've been fighting the same issue for 20 years. And if you can't really get safe and become conscious of why you're feeling unsafe and what the deeper issue is, then you really can't make a conscious choice not to react. And so you're just going to keep getting stuck in that same vicious cycle, and you're not going to be able to make progress on the issue. But one of the things that we've seen is that when couples can feel safe, they'll talk about this. They can come into a session and talk about an issue. Let's say a couple calls me and they tell me, we've dealt with this one issue for 20 years and we've been to 3 therapists and, nothing gets resolved. Why do you think that you're going to help me? When they come in and talk in the structured session that we create for them in Imago therapy, they walk away with a new understanding of the issue. Even though they've been dealing with the same issue for years, they're able to see it from a different perspective. They're able to understand each other better. They're able to feel heard, and they're able to think of new solutions on their own without my input. And that's because they feel safe. So we really want to be aware that when we're unsafe, we're going into this primitive part of our brain, that fight or flight, and that we want to create more safety so that we can really fully show up in a relationship and really be able to work through these issues. So let's go and explain now why organizing is such a touchy subject. Why does it evoke such a primitive response? And when we were thinking about this and thinking about what it felt for us in some of the organizing challenges or conflict that we've faced in our relationship and in others that we've worked with, we really came to the conclusion that organizing really, or the other people's organizing styles imposed on ours, encroaches on our space. When somebody moves our belongings or throws them away, it's like our own personal space was violated. I know that's kind of what I felt when we first got married, that it's just like, wow, you're kind of like taking my stuff, and it's like, it felt violated. So although there's probably not really much we can control over ourselves in our life except for our own actions, one of the things we like to think what we have control over is our time and our space. So when we have someone with the different organizing style in living together with us, our spouse, then many times we feel that control that we want over our time and space is no longer ours. So we become very reactive, and it really brings out the worst in us, because we're really fighting for our very existence. And although maybe it sounds a little bit silly, but this is the way that it's working on an unconscious level. And this is the way that we're reacting. And we want to get to the point of becoming conscious and being able to choose how we respond instead of just have these knee-jerk reactions. But this is kind of what's going on in our brain and in a physiological level, psychological level as well. So that's why it's so challenging when we get married and living with another person, because now it's not all about you and control over your time and space. There's someone else you have to consider. And how do you balance your needs with those of your spouse? How can you create that harmony? How can you have that give and take where you both feel safe? So that's kind of why organizing kind of really evokes that primitive response, that fight or flight response. So how can we create safety in our relationship and remove that threat? So a few of the things we would like to share is realizing that your partner is really an other. They're not you. So no matter how you think of things should be done or your style of organizing, they're not necessarily going to see things the same way. And if they don't, it's a good thing to start getting curious about their story. I'm wondering why does it bother you so much that, I want to straighten up everything right now? Or why does it bother you that, I like to leave things lying around in piles? I kind of get curious about the story. The truth is, your spouse is not trying to make your life miserable. They're really trying to do the best with the skills that they have and with the style that they have. So it's important to keep that in mind, because a lot of times when we feel threatened, we feel that it's really a direct affront to us, and it's usually not. Again, don't try to impose your own story or your organizing style on them. Respecting the differences and trying to meet each other halfway, and then finally becoming compassionate for the story of the other. And we just want to share kind of how our story that we shared with you. Let's revisit that.
I guess,
Rivka, what did you feel?
I felt like, we had moved into our house, and some of us came with more stuff than others, and I needed to, get the house.
You're lucky I threw away all those magazines a few years before we met.
I needed to get the house up and running, and, I didn't understand why you were so resistant. I didn't understand why it was so violating. I finally understood that you are sentimental. And that's actually, I realized, one of the things that I loved about you, that I first fell in love with you for. And so when I remembered that, I thought, okay, so you're sentimental about your belongings too. And I also understood that I was completely, not sentimental about my stuff, because I'd been thrown in, 4 different homes or whatever. So I couldn't depend on, my possessions to make me, feel safe. So once I understood this, right, I guess I didn't feel like you were holding me back, and that you were, the reason why I couldn't get organized.
Right. And, I felt that you were initially I felt that you were extremely insensitive, just like coming and taking my stuff. Like, it's like you couldn't care less about what I felt, or even think to ask me. But once I started to understand more about where you were coming from and why you felt this need to just kind of organize to get the job done, and why it was so important to you, then it helped me, I guess, not react as strongly. And I think it helped us be able to be more aware of the issue, maybe even laugh at it at times, and try to have a discussion about, both of our needs in the situation, and try to figure out a kind of a middle road to make us both happy.
And now that we have the tools for communication, which unfortunately tonight there's not that much time to share with you, like how to have the actual dialogue and the safe conversation about it, it's much easier.
So realize that there's really usually more than meets the eye when it comes to organizing. that it's not just about the stuff, it's about the stuff beneath the stuff. And with that, we'd like to invite Tara to share with us some of the organizing personality types, because we thought this was quite helpful. Again, we don't like to pigeonhole people with a label, but we do sometimes find that it's helpful to realize that we do have different styles. And when you realize that about your spouse, then it's not something that, you don't have to take it personal. Rivka didn't have to take it personal that I don't want to throw things away. I'm not allowed to stop her. I'm the sentimentalist, or, she might be one of the other things. And then I can realize, okay, this is why you're doing things the way you want to do them. And then we can better understand each other. So without further ado, I'd like Tara, if you could please share with us a little bit about some of these types. What's going through their head when they're looking at clutter, and what can they do to become more organized?
Well, one of the things I've done a presentation on a whole bunch of different occasions for both corporate and personal groups on organizing for your personality type. And one of the things that many of the people that come always say to me is, I came here looking for an answer about myself, but I left learning more about my family members or my coworkers' organizing styles than I did about my own. And that's actually much more beneficial. So, this is a really quick and dirty list, but looking at this, don't look just for yourself. Look for the people around you, because we're all very different, which is part of what makes the world go round and makes everybody fun to be around, is that we're not all exactly the same. But it also makes challenges when you're all living under the same roof. So, when you're dealing with the rebel, it's the person who, the more you push, the more they dig in their heels. So finding a common ground, having a family meeting where you talk about the purpose of the different rooms in your house. Is the bedroom a retreat, or is it a storage area for all of your kids' toys? Having those kind of agreements will help the rebel not dig in their heels. The perfectionist, these are the ones who are usually calling me to tell me about their spouse who can't get things organized. And what the perfectionist needs to understand is not everything is going to be their way. And typically when I come in, the perfectionists get a little unseated, so to speak, because the systems need to be in place for the person working the system. So not everything's going to be the perfectionist's way. It could be the other person's way. And we need to put the system in place so that the other person can work it, not the perfectionist.
Right. Because I think a lot of times the other spouse maybe doesn't see things that same way. Like, we just had a reader that said, being sentimental about magazines is one thing, but leaving socks on the floor all over is harder to see as a need or to sympathize with. Maybe the perfectionist, sometimes I think the person doesn't even really see the socks on the floor, right? Like,
they don't. And the perfectionist, unfortunately, because I'm one of them, so I can speak intelligently about this one. They're the ones who feel insulted. The clutter insults them because they feel that the people around them aren't respecting them. Mm-hmm. And that's not about the socks. That's about a whole bunch of other things.
Right. That's where Shlomo comes in.
That's where Shlomo comes in. The sentimentalist, it's interesting. With the sentimentalist, I see that as both, there are just some people that are more sentimental than others. And Shlomo's one of them. You pointed that out. He's pointed that out. But there's also people that are situationally sentimental. If there's a divorce, if there's a death in the family, certain traumatic life events can make somebody more sentimental than other times in their life. So, we need to look at that and be, sympathetic and empathetic to what other people are dealing with and what they've dealt with in their life.
Very important.
And then the defer, these are also tend to be, the more creative type people who, are great, more artistically, maybe musically, maybe cooking. They're the entertainers sometimes, where they're very creative and sometimes they don't think in those really concrete linear ways that maybe the perfectionist does. So their brain just doesn't go from A to Z. It skips around to numbers and shapes and stuff. It doesn't go in the same way. So customizing systems for them is going to be completely different than working with a perfectionist who's going to get upset if things aren't alphabetized.
Right. And
so learning more about the people around you is going to help you be sympathetic to the situation and also understand that we need to work together as a team, and having all the same type on a team actually works against you. Having a well-rounded team where everybody understands everybody's role is actually a much better way for harmony within the home.
So that sounds like it would be very good for people that have children with different styles, right? And they want to get their children to be helpful.
Absolutely. One of my goals in working with my clients is to give the parents the tools so that they're also training that next generation with the skills that they didn't have.
That's really, really great. And this is a chart that I'm hoping I can actually email to people, because there's so much information on this, and it is so powerful if you really think about it. But I love what you said about how not having everybody that's the same on the same team, and that the family will comprise of all of these personalities, and learning how to, customize a solution for each family is really what you do best, right?
Right. I mean, you can't have a whole family of CEOs. You got to have other players on the team to make it work together, for it to be harmonious.
Right. That makes sense. Well, this is really good information. And I think that those of you listening this might be the aha moment for you, or one of them. These clutter personality types, I know that they were for me and for Shlomo, and they're really like very foundational. So this is a really good start. And understanding that there's more than meets the eye, that now, and being compassionate about the deeper stories, right, Shlomo, that are fueling the fire of the spouse, maybe that's resistant. That is going to help so much when that, it's not a personal affront. They're not trying to make your life miserable, right?
Right. And like being able to have a conversation with them about it, so that you can both become more aware of what you're both feeling about it, can make a difference. And it can help take down the resistance towards organizing that some people might have. And even, we're going to get to some more of the questions after, at the end of the webinar, because some of you have written in questions about, a lot of times one spouse you think your spouse actually knows how to be organized, but they criticize your disorganization, but when they're a slob, it doesn't seem to bother them. So, we can talk more about some of that in a moment. But then I think the clutter personality types also helps you get more conscious about the differences and helps you see things differently. So, safety, again, as we said before, it's the first step to be able to break through the psychological barriers that get in the way of getting organized. And even if you think that there are no psychological barriers, there are often things that are, if you dig deep enough, you may see that there are blocks that are kind of preventing you, as we said, or the styles, the rebel style. Why are you, every time I push you to do it, I know you can get organized, but every time I push you or ask you to do it, you go out of your way not to be organized because you don't.
Right, because you don't want to be pressured.
Yeah, so I mean, there's something deeper going on, and a reason why that would be your kind of MO with regards to this.
But there's also so many more organizing type of systems that could be implemented in each of these cases, right? There's the tickler system, there's dinner strategies, there's hoarding, there's chronic lateness, there's different ways to divide labor, how to get it all done, how to create safe conversations about these issues.
Right, and that's really important. I mean, at least from the work that I do, I know most of you and Tara spend much more time with all the previous things, the tickler and the dinner strategies, but with the safe conversations, I found that that's really important, because that actually creates the safety in the brain so that you can talk about it and see things from a new way and really come up with some better strategies on your own. And that can lay the groundwork that the organizational tools can help much more.
So we're very excited because I haven't really seen a lot of places where it combines organizing skills and more harmony in your home at the very same time. I think that's unique to our work with the Marriage Restoration Project and the Organized Couple and having Tara on the call. And that's why I'm so excited that we're putting together something called the Organized Couple Boot Camp, which is very similar to what you're hearing us do now, except we can go into so much greater detail on all of those organizing strategies that I just shared with you, as well as, going through some of the chronic organizing issues that may have been holding you back and creating conflict. So,
Right, and a lot of you have sent in. We had a lot of emails before the call with specific issues that you're dealing with, which are quite common, and also during the call. And we're going to try to address some of them. Other people who are live, address some of them that you've sent in at the end of the call. But we were hoping that through the boot camp, we're going to give you the opportunity we're going to really cover and address some of these issues in more detail with a really concrete tips, and especially Tara's
she'll be on
all the
three
calls with us to help teach you some great strategies to get organized. And I'm actually really looking forward to learning more ways, because
we still need it.
We still could use help as
right, especially being in business together. There was a few people that had written to us that, how do you work with a couple that actually has to work together at home and at work? So we're very excited to hear what Tara has to say also. So I know that with the boot camp, you'll be able to experience more calm and more joy in your home. And that's really what we're all about, right? I mean, who doesn't want that? So there are other boot camps that we've had, and couples love them because they feel like, I don't want to read this verbatim, but I love it. After going through your program, I feel like a completely different person. Although we have spent years in therapy, we were still on the verge of divorce. The skills we've learned with your Imago therapy have helped us break the vicious cycle of conflict, and we're able to enjoy each other's company again. Do you remember that couple, Shlomo?
Yeah, I do. And it's really because of the safety that they were able to create in their relationship, which really transformed and made the difference. That even though they had so much therapy, it still didn't, they're still ready to. And this is just, I could tell you, if this story has been, we could have put another 100 names there. It's really
the safety piece
common.
is really interesting. And somebody wrote, can you explain more about safety? And I'm hoping that over the course of this call, you've heard in our voice what it means to feel emotionally safe with your partner, right? Not being shamed or blamed or yelled at or screamed at, right?
Right. We will teach in the course, the boot camp, the 3-week boot camp that we'll talk a little bit more about. We will teach you practical ways of creating that safety, and not just this thing where you're kind of like thinking about your partner's story or getting compassionate, but really how to sit down and have a conversation and remove the reactivity.
We have couples really with marriages ranging from all spectrums. We have couples that are fine, in their marriage, and they really just want some organizing tips. And then we have couples that are experiencing problems in their marriage, and, maybe they are organized. But this was really, they told us, please share this with all couples that you ever work with on your programs, because we had the worst marriage ever. And if we could be helped, then everyone could be helped. This woman, what was it, Shlomo? Just summarize for us.
And basically they were, it was really, really horrible situation.
I think the wife wasn't feeling well, and she didn't realize that there was a sewage leak in her bedroom for months. And then the husband was upset, and he threw burning grease at her face, and then he was put in jail. And then
it was quite a nightmare. And she wanted him to listen to our program for a while. She put it on her phone, and
she didn't
eventually
even realize.
He wound up listening to it, and their communication changed, and their relationship was better. And when they contacted us, they were expecting their first child.
So they were really, really happy. So if they could do it, you could do it. And really, like Tara said, it's all about customizing for you. And that's what we do in the boot camps, in the Organized Couple Boot Camp. We'll customize situations that are, directly for you. So everybody wants to know more about the boot camp and the technicalities. So I always start with a guarantee, because people are reluctant and people are nervous. What if it doesn't work for me? And you should know that we have 100% money back guarantee, no questions asked. We give you 60 days because we want you to, for 3 weeks, we want you to apply the strategies that Tara and us will be presenting. So you need the 30 days, to list approximately to listen to the strategies, and then you need some time to implement them. So if you see no improvement at all whatsoever in your life, full refund, no questions asked. So their price is $147 for the 3 classes. And we're very grateful to Tara for her time because she charges $150 for 45 minutes of organizing. So she's really giving us a lot of her time.
3 hours at $600.
Right. So she's giving us $600 worth of her time. And Shlomo, you charge $225 for 90 minutes of marriage counseling. So this is 3 classes total for $147. So what did you tell me? You're like, I would do it just to hire the professional organizer.
Oh, that's right. That's a bonus, yeah.
Right. There's other bonuses to sweeten the deal for you because we really want you to commit to your success and finally be able to free yourself from the clutches of clutter and from the constraints of conflict.
So if you sign up within 15 minutes from the end of the call, you will be able to get, in addition to the course for the 147, you will get $600 worth of free bonuses. You get 45-minute complimentary organizing session with Tara, which is normally $150. This alone is valuable enough to do it.
And that's going to be by phone, one-on-one for you.
Or Skype. And then you'll get the $150 off tickets to, we're having a live Getting Love You Want. It's a Mago workshop weekend with, it's going to be November 13th through 15th with really great presenters, David and Donna Bowman. And we're offering $150 off as part of the bonus to this weekend. And it's booking up. So
we wanted
it's
to
a very
share
transformational weekend. And then finally, you get our free digital copy of the Marriage Mastery Program. And that's our kind of do-it-yourself, do-it-at-home marriage program. We have a DVD, we have a book, a workbook, and audios.
5 CDs.
And that'll be delivered to your inbox.
And normally that's $277, and that will be free. You'll get the digital. And I just wanted to say the Getting the Love You Want workshop, when we mentioned 14 years ago, when we saw an Imago therapist, we went to David and Donna Bowman, and they are the people that we are bringing to present the Getting the Love You Want workshop in Baltimore, because there's really, we know what they do and we believe in it so much. I mean, we do the same things, but they specifically do the workshop. So we're bringing them out.
And we already have couples that are coming from all over, not just Baltimore, from the West Coast, from the South, coming for North as well, coming for the workshop. So it's going to be exciting. And it's, again, if you sign up within the first 15 minutes, you get the bonuses. If you email, we'll know when you
so basically you should see a button that is asking you, you should see a register button that you can press. And what I'd like you to do is, so we know that you did it in the first 15 minutes, we would like you to please email us your order receipt, and so we can know that you did it within 15 minutes, because we'd like to honor that and reward those that are committed to the process and really jump right in. Sometimes when you just commit to your success, it's just like so much more, what's successful, because you've committed and you jumped in. So that's what we want to do. Now, our schedule and Tara's schedule are really funky and busy. And so we don't know exactly when we're reopening up the boot camp. We have allotted 3 weeks to do this, and we'll go over the exact dates with you of when it's going to be. There will always be a replay link provided. So no worries about that, because you'll always be able to get on and listen. So does anybody have any questions about how to access the Organized Couple Boot Camp for the next 3 weeks? And let me just give you a minute to write to us and let us know if you have any questions about how to actually register. Not about the, well, I am going to take questions about the content also. I see people are writing, people are getting through, and that's great. Now, I'd like to take some questions about the organizing. And Tara, I'm going to share these with you while we're processing the orders and letting these first 15 minutes go through. Shlomo, how do we want to select the questions? Because there's a lot of them. Okay, and I want to pick the ones that everybody can relate to somehow. Okay. So I live in a small one-bedroom apartment with 3 young kids. Is my issue really clutter, or is it a lack of space to keep things organized? Tara, I'm going to pass
It,
this on to you.
it is potentially both. Um, when you're dealing with a really small space, sometimes we need to get creative with the solutions. So it could be minimizing the amount of stuff we have, or using a rotation system for different things. So, we're keeping in-season clothes in the closet to keep things spacious, and then having the off-season clothes in another area.
Mhm.
So depending on how we can work that, we can work around over the door racks. We can do a lot of different things to customize solutions. So feel free to email me too when we're going through all this. My
Yeah,
contact information,
there will be unlimited email support
yeah,
for
during the boot camp.
during the boot camp, definitely, because we want to value your time. There will be unlimited email support, and there'll be the replays. Definitely. Let me pick another. I do find though that when in doubt, it is good to declutter, or to learn those skills also, because in a small apartment, even when you have a place for everything, it just clutter, don't you think, just accumulates so quickly?
Absolutely, because you don't have the buffer of another 1,000 square foot to put things in.
Right.
So, as soon as you've got 6 pieces of paper on the countertop, it's cluttered.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like clutter grows to meet, the space that you're in for sure. Don't you think?
Absolutely. My clients always say, "Can I move to a bigger house and that'll solve my problem?" It never solves the problem.
Right. For sure. Shlomo, do you want to pick another question that you're getting? What about people that sometimes are organized and sometimes they're not? And then the spouse is frustrated because they know their spouse, knows this, but sometimes the spouse performs and sometimes they don't.
Or they're only selectively organized. They're organized for their own belongings. They notice their spouse's disorganization, but they're okay with their own.
I think that might be a question for Shlomo, actually. So I've seen where sometimes, if there's conflicts in the relationship that haven't been worked out, where a partner could be almost passive aggressive. Sometimes they do what their partner wants them to do, and sometimes they don't, just to kind of push buttons. Other times it could be a bigger situation where it's really about time management and discipline. Uh, Putting organizational systems in place is kind of like eating healthy. You've got to do it every day,
Right.
in order for you to stay healthy. If you eat junk food 3 days a week and eat healthy 3 days a week, you're not going to stay healthy.
Mm.
So you can't take 3 days off of organizing and then organize for 3 days and expect everything to just run smoothly on a regular basis.
Mm. That's a good answer. What was the other one that you were just showing me?
How do you get other people how do you get your other people in the family on board?
Who are, especially if they're quite resistant to wanting
other family members, even children, they don't want to participate in the organizing or house upkeep.
That's where I usually create a reward list of some kind, where we sit down, we have a family meeting, everybody's involved, and we talk about what the family priorities are. And sometimes that's lowering the expectations of the perfectionist in the family and raising expectations of some of the other people in the family to create that harmony. It's kind of like, okay, if I lower my expectations a little bit and they raise what they're willing to do, we can all meet in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really about creating that smooth running system so that everybody's on the same page. And it's not easy, but if we can sit down and talk it through, we usually come to an agreement.
Yeah, and I know you're pretty firm, and people listen to you. They tend to just really, they seem to rise to to meet the occasion, don't you think?
They do. My clients call me passionately honest. I don't pull any punches, but at the same time, it's really about working towards the family goals. It's not about my agenda.
Right.
And if they want to achieve an organized home that runs more seamlessly, the kids will understand that mommy's less stressed if they pick up their socks.
Right. And so it's so they really can see it that it's pleasurable rather than painful. Right.
Right. And getting the pain out of the way, the homework or the cleaning up or whatever it is done means that we have time for a board game after dinner, or it means we have more snuggle time at the end of the day, or it means that we have date night, or whatever the reward is. If there's a payoff at the end, people are always more likely to do something, whether it's an adult or a kid.
Wonderful. It looks like some of you are having trouble with checkout, and because, I will add the few minutes on just, to make it easier, because I realize this is a technical thing, because there was something that was supposed to pop up to allow you guys to check out. If you could go to the website, themarriagerestorationproject.com/organized-couple-bootcamp. So themarriagerestorationproject.com/organized-couple-bootcamp. And that will allow you to check out and join us.
And we just had some questions. There are 3 live webinars. So there are going to be 3 live webinars with the 3 of us. And again, what you get for for the 3 webinars, it's going to be 3 an hour each webinar. And if you sign up within the next 15 minutes, some people had asked again to show the screen, the bonuses are going to be, you get 45 minutes with Tara. You get $150 off the Getting Love You Want weekend workshop, and you also get the marriage mastery program for free, downloadable to your inbox, and of course, email access to us during those 3 weeks to ask any questions that you have.
I'll just show you here. This is, somebody asked, could we please show the letter that shows exactly what you get? So these are the tentative dates. Next Thursday, the Wednesday after that, and we're going to do the Wednesday after that. And we've got some testimonials.
And if you can't listen to it live, you'll get a replay link for every week. So you'll have all the classes available for you, even if you can't attend live.
So really, these bonuses actually make the whole thing really a no-brainer. So we're so glad that you were able to join us tonight. We hope we were able to address some of your questions. We have hundreds and hundreds of organizing questions to address, and we really felt badly that we couldn't get to all of them. And I know that we'll be able to get to them on the next boot camp, because there'll be 3 full classes, an hour each. So we hope that you can join us. And Tara, thank you so much for being here. We really can't thank you enough. I respect you so much as an organizer, and I know your clients do as well. So thank you so much for being with us tonight, and also on the future classes.
Oh, I'm excited. I really think this is a marriage made in heaven, because I really think the combination of handling the mental components and what's behind what's going on in the marriage, and then adding in the organizing components, it's really going to streamline things and work well together.
Awesome.
We're really excited and looking forward to it. We're looking forward to hearing
your strategies,
your advice.
So thank you so much. I don't want to keep you guys past an hour. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next week. Take good care.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.